in a matter of seconds here, and we're going to kick off the 2018 Mastering Diabetes Online Summit. Here we are. Let's do this.
Yeah, how you guys doing? Welcome to the 2018 Mastering Diabetes Online Summit live kickoff webinar. Just in case you are curious as to whether we are actually here live in person, the answer is yes, we're right here. We are right here.
Absolutely.
We are super excited to be here.
And so we just started a poll. We always like to see what type of diabetes people are living with in the audience that we're speaking to. So go ahead and place your vote there. What type of diabetes are you living with in the poll? And we'll take a look at that in a few minutes here and see what we have in the room. You can also let us know, where are you coming from? So I'm in Santa Monica, California. Cyrus is in beautiful Costa Rica.
Can't complain.
Where we happen to be having our next retreat. Very exciting. In Costa Rica.
Yes. Costa Rica is a phenomenal place. So in the chat box I see here, so basically just write, where are you living right now, and then also vote on the poll, just like Robbie said. We generally have a very international audience, and we love that. I mean, people from all over the world. So I see here Michael's from San Jose, Derek's from Toronto, Canada, Alyssa's from New Jersey, John from Type 2, Adam from Austin, Texas. I think I know that guy. Brenda from, can't read it too quick. I see Colombia, Juliana, welcome. And then we got Waterloo, Canada, Pat. Sydney, Australia, Yola, look at this. We got people all over the planet. This is great. The world of diabetes can be really confusing, can be incredibly confusing. And, maybe for me, it was about 15 years ago when I was first introduced to diabetes and all of the related topics underneath it. And I remember feeling at the time like I was used, because it felt like everybody was saying something slightly different than the other person. And, there were lots of shoulds and need to and have tos and musts, and you have to do this and you can't do this. And at a certain point, I was just like, oh, this is exhausting. This is just too much. And so over the course of time, as I continued to educate myself and learn more and interact with Robbie and learn from him, the two of us have been able to really get to a point where we can simplify, just simplify this entire world of diabetes and blood glucose management and medication, and get you to a point where, it's crystal clear in your head what is causing blood glucose instability. And then once it's crystal clear, you can start to put the pieces into play that will enable you to reverse insulin resistance and therefore gain full control of your blood glucose back again, and make sure that you are able to control your blood glucose for the rest of your life. So that's what the entire summit is about.
That's exactly right. You just said the key word right there. Insulin resistance. I mean, that is what we talk about over and over and over again here at Mastering Diabetes, because that is so important. And that is what links all forms of diabetes together. You will hear us talk about that throughout the summit. As you see, we open up the summit with phase 1, which we're going to talk about later, which is understanding insulin resistance and diabetes, how they're connected, what that means. That's a big deal. So like Cyrus said, we like to make it simple. We like to make it simple, and we sure hope that after you guys go through this summit and watch these interviews, that you, at the end, you see the message is very simple. It's very clear, and you feel confident moving forward. You know what to do to take care of your health.
100%. Okay, so now let's take a look at this poll, because a lot of you guys have voted on this poll. It looks like there's a total of 372 of you guys right here. So as expected, the type 2 diabetes, the 50% of you are living with type 2 diabetes. And then actually what's surprising to me is that approximately 25% of you either don't have diabetes or have a loved one with diabetes. So a quarter of the audience that's here right now has nothing to do with diabetes and are just either, in it for information or trying to learn on behalf of a loved one. So I'm very glad to see that, actually, because, it sounds like there's a lot of prevention which is happening here.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of people participate in our summits from the medical field. We've had registered dietitians, we've had medical doctors come in and enjoy. So I hope some of those people are in that field as well, so we can get this information out to the patients and people who really don't know about it.
100%. Now, we also have about 15% of people here with prediabetes. Now, if you're living with prediabetes right now, take a second, pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself for participating in the Mastering Diabetes Online Summit, because the goal of those living with prediabetes is to never develop type 2 diabetes. And there are very simple ways that you can accomplish this. And the information in the summit is hopefully going to help you understand exactly what it is that you can do so that you can move from the pre-diabetes range back to the non-diabetic range. I don't have diabetes. I don't want anything to do with diabetes. I never was diabetic, and I don't want to be diabetic at all. So if you're in that situation, you're in a really good spot, because more than 90% of all cases of type 2 diabetes are reversible, and closer to 95% of all cases of pre-diabetes are fully reversible. So let's make sure that unfolds for you if that's where you are right now.
Absolutely. It's like Cyrus said, you pat yourself on the back for being here, but you got a nice little warning sign, and you've taken the chance. So, I'm going to go learn this information. I'm going to take charge of my health. That's amazing. We're happy to have you with us.
Yep. Okay, so we got about 400 people in the room right now, and here's what we want you guys to do. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself a little bit, talk a little bit about my story. Robbie's going to do that the same thing. If you guys have questions during this webinar, okay, what I want you guys to do is just use your fingers and type either into the computer or into your phone. We have a whole team of people in the background, including my lovely, beautiful wife right here. Okay, and they're going to be going through the questions, and we're going to try and get to them and answer all of the questions that you guys bring forward. So we're going to do our best to get there. So if you got something in your head, please make sure to write it down. Okay, so maybe Robbie, how about you start with your story?
Absolutely. So I'll try not to keep it too long, give the condensed one. I will say, so Cyrus and I both have presentations in the summit this year, so make sure to check those out. We go into a little bit more detail about our stories, and we ask each other some great questions. It's really fun. So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 12 years old, just about to turn 13. So that was over 18 years ago. And as most of you know, type 1 diabetes is when the pancreas has been damaged. Our beta cells do not produce a sufficient amount of insulin. So I inject exogenous insulin on a daily basis in order to stay healthy and eat. So initially, I was following the standard American diet. And my older brother was also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes before me. So I have two older brothers, myself and the middle brother. We both have type 1 diabetes. And I struggled with my overall health. I was getting sick every single year. I had terrible allergies, and I would take Nasonex, I would take Claritin D, and I would still get sick every single year. And I was a competitive tennis player, and I suffered from plantar fasciitis, which was no fun. And I had to wear these big blue boots at night to try and, mitigate that condition. And it really did not get better until I changed my diet, which is fascinating. And I also suffered from really bad acne. So I took all kinds of pills, and I did the treatments, microdermabrasion, you go to the dermatologist, expensive stuff, they do lasers, and it was still a problem. It wasn't treating the root cause, the root problem. It's a big thing we talk about here at Mastering Diabetes. So I suffered with that. I ended up trying one of the worst drugs you possibly could take, which is Accutane, very serious, lots of side effects. And life went on. So eventually, I started learning about other dietary patterns. And really, for me, my story is that I got into this, changing my diet and really going far and really eating as clean as I could, because I got this thing planted in my mind that, you know what, maybe I can reverse type 1 diabetes. And I'm committed to doing that in the long term. I think we're all going to solve this. We will find a solution. But in the interim, going through this path, this journey of figuring out what is the best way I could live to give my body the best chance to heal, that is how I discovered the low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet. And along that journey, I tried a low-carbohydrate, animal-based diet. I tried a low-carbohydrate, plant-based, vegan diet. And those experiences were very enlightening. And I can look in hindsight and learn what happened in those experiences and why it happened. And that's what we teach. That's what we cover a lot about in this summit. So while doing a low-carbohydrate diet, I took the least amount of insulin I've ever taken. And I had very steady blood glucose. But I felt terrible. I had no energy. And I was, based on the research we uncover in this summit, what we've read, I was setting myself up for some long-term health problems. And luckily, I ended up finding about the low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. And when I made that shift, yes, so my total insulin went up from when it was on a ketogenic diet, but my insulin sensitivity went through the roof. So instead of injecting at a 3-to-1 ratio for 24 hours, I now can eat over 700 grams of carbohydrate per day, and I'm injecting at about 19-to-1 ratio. And that's very important. And again, we're going to have Cyrus, you hear about this in the summit. Why does it matter that your insulin sensitivity is high? Why is that so important? You're going to hear all about that from expert after expert about the details. But in general, it's for your overall health. People living with diabetes, the #1 killer is heart disease. We do not die of high blood glucose readings. That's not what's killing people. It's these other chronic diseases. And insulin resistance is linked to heart disease. So that basically, I found this diet. I've been following it for now 11 years. For 11 years, I've been eating nothing but fruits and vegetables, and I feel amazing. My plantar fasciitis is gone. My skin's the clearest it's ever been. I don't take any allergy medications. I don't get sick, and my diabetes is completely under control. So my A1Cs range from 5.6 to 6.6, and my blood glucose is predictable. It's very predictable. So whenever I eat a meal, I know as long as I inject the appropriate amount of insulin, then my blood glucose is going to land right in range afterwards. And I can do that over and over and over again. You can see that on what I ate videos I've done on YouTube. And it's just the quality of life is so amazing on this approach. And that is why Cyrus and I are so passionate about sharing this with people and letting you guys have the experience and giving you the education and the science to understand why it works. That's very empowering. And that's what this summit is all about. That's why we've put this together. And we're really glad to have you guys joining us.
Fantastic. I love it. So, I've heard Robbie's story probably, I don't know, 700 times at this point. And I still learn something every single time. So I'll give you the short version of my story as well. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 22, which is my senior year in college. At that time, I didn't know anything about diabetes. All I knew was that I felt terrible and that I was thirsty all the time. I was urinating 15, 20 times a day, and I had no energy. So I checked myself into the health center on campus, as my sister, who's a doctor of osteopathy, told me to do. And then they transported me to the hospital where they said, oh, by the way, you have type 1 diabetes. Your blood glucose is alarmingly high. It was like in the 600s. So they started injecting insulin into my left arm. They started giving me saline into my right arm. And 24 hours later, after my blood glucose was more normal, they discharged me from the hospital and said, here's your blood glucose meter. Here's your carbohydrate counting book. Here's your prescription for insulin. Here are your syringes. Here's your lancets. Here's a bracelet that says, oh, by the way, I have type 1 diabetes. And I walked away from there and I was like, wow, what just happened to me? That's weird, right? 24 hours ago, I was a quote unquote normal person. And now here I am, a medical patient for the rest of my life. So it took about a year for me to really understand diabetes. And I was hoping that I would just, I could just make it go away. But what I ended up realizing is that the low carbohydrate methodology, which is what my doctors had told me at the time to do, was actually driving me in the wrong direction. Even though reducing my carbohydrate intake was supposed to make my blood glucose more controllable, it did the opposite. My blood glucose was all over the place. It was this roller coaster. It was just constantly up and down and up and down and up and down. My energy levels got lower. I couldn't exercise as much. And so I started recognizing that, there probably is a better way. So I started reading everything under the sun. I picked up book after book after book. I started looking at recipe guides. I started watching movies, attending scientific lectures, talking to people. And one thing led to another. And before I knew it, every door that I opened said plant-based diet, plant-based diet, plant-based diet, plant-based diet. And I was like, what? This is fascinating. Why is everybody talking about a plant-based diet? So once I decided that I really wanted to make a change, I said, okay, great, here we go. I'm going to try a plant-based diet. So under the guidance of a nutrition professional, his name's Dr. Doug Grant, he showed me how to eat a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. And by doing so, I was able to reduce my need for insulin very quickly. So I was thinking at the time that, if I'm gonna eat more plants and I'm gonna eat more fruits in particular, then my blood glucose is gonna go up. And as a result, my insulin use is also gonna go up. But that didn't happen. Not only did that not happen, my glucose went the opposite direction and my insulin use went the opposite direction. So I was eating more fruits, more carbohydrate, more total carbohydrate energy. And as a result of that, my glucose was coming down and my insulin use fell by 40%. 40% in the first week. So I was excited, came back to San Francisco, continued to do this. I perfected it. I got better and better and better. I learned where to buy food. I learned how to save money. I learned how to control my blood glucose with precision. And then finally, I got so excited by this experiment that I decided to go back to school. So I studied for 5 years at UC Berkeley as a PhD so I could understand nutritional biochemistry, which is the study of the super nerd version of nutrition. And I really wanted to understand how can you eat to reverse insulin resistance? Because like Robbie said earlier, like I've been saying over and over again, like you're probably going to hear 1,000 times during the summit, insulin resistance is the reason why your blood glucose is variable. Insulin resistance is the reason why your blood glucose is variable, okay? I would highly recommend get out a pen and a paper and write this down. Insulin resistance is the reason why your blood glucose is variable. So by studying and doing a PhD and really delving into the science, I was able to get to a point where I was very confident in understanding what causes insulin resistance, what reverses insulin resistance, and how can you apply this methodology to all people living with diabetes. Type 1, type 1.5, pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, gestational diabetes. So in this way, this has been sort of a launching pad to creating Mastering Diabetes. And Mastering Diabetes is all about teaching people exactly how to implement the same strategy. Low-fat, plant-based, whole food nutrition for maximizing your health. And in working now with thousands of people over the course of the last couple of years, we've been able to really help a lot of people. And the summit is one of our favorite things to do. So we're really glad that you're here and hope that you get a lot out of this experience. There's no question about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We are super glad you guys are here. And I just heard that there is a lot of really good questions coming in. A lot of people that are new to this approach, new to this program. So I say we go in and just start answering questions. What do you think, Cyrus? Should we get a little breakdown of how the summit's going to work, how to access things, and then answer questions?
Why don't you share your screen right now? Let's just go through the sort of logistics of participating in the summit, because I know there's going to be a lot of questions. Just want to make sure you guys understand exactly how to access the material and on what schedule. And then as soon as we're done with that, then we can go into, a little bit about, we can go into questions for sure.
Okay. Can you see my screen, Cyrus?
Andrea says, you guys rock. Thank you. You are changing my life. I love it, Andrea. So glad to see that. Thank you for saying that. Robbie, all I see is a black screen right now. I don't know if you are trying to share your screen.
I am trying to share, so let me try to stop and bring it back.
Looks like we got a black screen, guys. The black screen of death. Maybe I could share my screen.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Here's what I'm going to do.
See what happens.
I'm going to share my screen. Oh,
somebody said they could see it. Or maybe they saw black. We could see his screen. So why don't we...
Robbie, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because people said they could see it. Turn screen share on. The entire screen.
You
can see my screen. If not, Tara will let me know. So here is how the summit is going to work. Okay. So starting tomorrow is day 1. Okay. And we're going to get into phase 1, understanding insulin resistance and diabetes and all these lectures. Okay. So since you guys are on this webinar and you're here, you get first access to begin watching the material. So we have already released all these interviews. So you see this URL up here, masteringdiabetes.org/2018summit/schedule. That's going to be your home base throughout this summit. Okay, you're going to want to save that URL and go to that page. And as new interviews are released, they will stay here and be available throughout the entire summit. So make sure to set aside time I really mean it. Put it on your calendar and say, I'm going to watch interviews for 2 hours or 3 hours at this time on these days, so you don't miss it while this stuff is free and available, okay? So, for example, Cyrus's interview is available right now. You can go and watch it. And it'll be up for the entire duration of the summit, okay, through April 4th. And then the next day, so tomorrow is Thursday, on Friday morning, these interviews will become available. So you got Michael Greger, incredible interview there. Dean Ornish, legend, showing we can reverse heart disease. A very amazing interview right there. Joel Kahn, talking about why minimizing saturated fat and cholesterol reverses insulin resistance and diabetes. That is a really, really important presentation. This one with Dr. Roseanne Oliveira, the truth about diabetes and metabolic dysfunction. So it talks a lot about genes. She also talks about the confusion around the ketogenic diet. So that's a really great talk right there. Matt Letterman talks about creating sustainability on a plant-based diet by understanding calorie density. That's a very big deal. Okay? And then the next day, next morning, you'll get an email with a link to come and see all of these interviews. Then we have Joel Furman, amazing, the power of the Nutritarian diet for reversing diabetes for the rest of your life. Very, very important presentation. Okay, Dr. Robert Osfeld, one of the future doctors in this movement, really amazing guy. How to reverse coronary artery disease and diabetes simultaneously, how they're linked. That's important. Hans Diehl, the cause and cure of type 2 diabetes. The power is on your plate. Very good presentation. Dr. John McDougall, he talks about the pharmaceutical industry, which is more effective, and he shows a lot of the science behind that. Ray Cronus, the exact formula to reverse insulin resistance in type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Great lecture right there, okay? And again, as these interviews become available, they stay available throughout the duration of the summit. So make sure to set aside time on your calendar. Okay, so I'm going to continue going here. Okay, Brenda Davis. Okay, this is how low carbohydrate diets cause lipotoxicity, oxidative stress, and dysbiosis. That was a fascinating interview. You do not want to miss that one. Brenda was one of our most popular interviews last year. Super glad to have her back. It's fascinating, fascinating information. Ronald Weiss. Okay, the microbiome is such a hot topic right now for very good reason. And the science that's being uncovered in that area, a lot of new science, is absolutely fascinating. And Dr. Ron Weiss talks about it. He talks about some of the new research that he is actually doing with Rutgers University. And he actually goes into what's going on in a lot of cases where people who really actually do make lifestyle change and they're doing a lot of healthy habits and they get a lot of progress. But then towards the end, there's that little bit where they just can't get that last number fixed, that last piece of blood work, or the last few pounds, or whatever it is. He goes into depth on why that is and how we can actually solve that and get over those final hurdles. So that's a fantastic presentation. Rick Dina, understanding the truth about essential fatty acids on a whole food plant-based diet. So Rick Dina, this is his first year in our summit, and we are so glad to have him joining because this is critical information. So a lot of people, they get confused. They start following a low-fat diet and they get concerned. Hey, am I going to get all the essential fatty acids that I need? And where do I get them from? What's going to happen if I don't have olive oil and I don't have coconut oil? So this is a great presentation. He actually goes into the science behind that. And just for fun, we actually analyze my blood work. So you can see my fatty acid profile after doing this diet for many, many years. And that's very interesting and fun. Just a little fun exercise. We're not saying that just because I have good results or just because Cyrus has good results, people should do things. It's just a fun exercise. We have evidence-based guidance in everything we do. It's not just anecdotal evidence. So that's Rick Dina. Valter Longo, how the fasting mimicking diet reprograms your immune system. Again, this was an amazing opportunity for us to connect with Dr. Longo. This guy is a very big deal. He has, to get him on our summit was amazing. So that's a fascinating interview. You do not want to miss that one. He has some really interesting information he's bringing to the world right now. And then I have an interview on April 1st. Check that out. I talk a little bit about the confusion amongst different plant-based diets and how to really sort through that, and share some of my top tips for type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes for people using insulin and people not using insulin. I share my top tips there. So that was really fun. Then we move into mastering the mental and emotional aspects of lifestyle change. So this is so, so important. This is critical, the mental aspect, the emotional aspect. I know a lot of people, they get the logistics, they get the science, they know what to do, they're ready to do it, they want to do it, but yet there's still some hurdles to overcome. There's still some challenges. And we have some great interviews addressing these topics. So Alan Goldhammer, talking about the pleasure trap, really, really fascinating information. And he shares a lot of experience at his fasting retreat, the fasting facility that he's been running for many, many years. Very experienced. He's new to our summit. Really glad to have him. Susan Pierce Thompson, she covers some really fascinating information about overcoming food addiction. She is a real expert in that field, and we're glad to have her joining us this year. Adam Sudd. Adam Sudd is one of our coaches in our coaching program, and same with Mark Ramirez. So both Adam and Mark, they're in our summit. They're sharing their stories, and we are just so proud and happy to have these guys in our program. So, when people working with us in our coaching program, you're getting coaching from me and Cyrus, both of us living with type 1 diabetes. And then we have Kylie, who you just saw earlier in this webinar. She's a registered nurse who's been living with Cyrus for many years. She really understands type 1 diabetes. And then you have Adam and Mark, who have reversed type 2 diabetes themselves. So that experience, that guidance that we're offering on our coaching is something we're really proud of. And we're happy to have them in the summit. You're definitely going to want to check out their interviews and hear their stories of how they completely reversed their diabetes and overcame the mental aspects. Now, Danielle, she has a great interview here with some tips. She goes through 7 specific tips that she has to really transform your mental health. Really, really good information in her interview. Don't want to miss that. And then we move into communicating about lifestyle change with friends, family, and medical professionals. So we know this is a big struggle. People, they come across information, they read these books, whether it's John McDougall's books, Joel Fuhrman, Forks Over Knives books, and they're like, wow, this makes sense. I heard about it from all these other doctors. But then working with your own physician is very problematic and a big challenge. So we go into that in many of these interviews. Lori Marbus, how to communicate with your doctor for ultimate long-term success. Lori is also a new addition to our summit this year, and you are going to love her. She is just such a delightful personality and really, really smart. You do not want to miss her interview. Dustin Williams. This was a new addition to our summit. And, it's fun. You set these interviews up. You're not sure exactly how it's going to go, what's going to happen. And his interview was sensational. He goes into the science of the medicine, the medications that are being prescribed in the world of diabetes. And this is mostly for people living with non-insulin dependent diabetes. And his discussion of these medications and the side effects and how they work and why you want to get off of them was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And then we have our very own Kylie Buckner. She gave a sensational interview, how to ask for support from your medical team, friends, and family. And she covers a heck of a lot more in her interview. You do not want to miss that one. Definitely don't miss that. And again, let's be honest here, guys. As these interviews become live towards the end of the summit, you have a little bit less time to watch them, okay? Because then after April 4th, that's when the summit ends. So make sure to put some time on your calendar to check these out early in the day when they become available on April 3rd, and you do not want to miss these. Okay, Steve Lewenda. So I met him several years ago at a plant-based nutrition conference in Los Angeles. We published an article about him on the Forks Over Knives website when I was working there, and he's just a delightful guy, and he is doing amazing work in the healthcare field and really educating his colleagues and helping his patients in a profound way. So he gave us a great interview. Susan Levin, talking about gestational diabetes, pregnancy, and breastfeeding on a plant-based diet. So Susan, she's been around this field for a long, long time. This is very important information on those specific topics. So if those are topics interesting to you, make sure to put that on your calendar. You don't want to miss that interview. All right, now we'll move into phase 6 here. This is motivation and resources to make the low-fat, plant-based whole food transition. Juliana Hever has been in this field for a long time, registered dietitian with a lot of experience. And we all hear about the Mediterranean diet. And, oh, they had lots of olive oil, and they do nuts and seeds. And it's been talked about a lot, and people get confused about that. So she addresses that. She actually wrote a book called The Vegetarian Diet, and she is very, very knowledgeable about all the nuances in that field. Chef AJ, okay, this is another one of our amazing interviews. Her energy, her excitement, but the information that she gave. So a lot of you on this webinar were probably attended our last webinar with her, and her information is pure gold, and she is so good at presenting it and making complex information very easy to understand and then easy to apply to your life. So you do not want to miss that. She talks about lots of great tips for food preparation and also talks about calorie density and a lot more. Rip Esselstyn talking about the masculine side of low-fat, plant-based whole food nutrition. Okay, so for all the men out there or women trying to reach their men in their life, you do not want to miss this interview. And Rip was really funny on this one, I gotta tell you. There's a lot of laughs in this interview, so that's a good one. If you want some humor, don't miss Rip's interview. Andrew Taylor, this is a new addition to our summit. He literally ate nothing but potatoes for 365 days, and he lost 121 pounds doing so. So he goes into the actual blood work that he had during that period of time and why his numbers were what they were and what he learned from that and how he teaches people to eat very simply and that whole mindset shift. He really goes into that. Really, really powerful interview. Do not want to miss that one. Eric Adams is new to our summit. This is another one with a lot of laughs. Eric Adams is, he's got a lot of really funny one-liners, and he's a very well-spoken guy. He's a politician, and he's very entertaining, but has an incredible story of how he reversed his type 2 diabetes. So you do not want to miss that one. Really funny and really inspiring. And then we're going to do another webinar on April 5th. Okay, we're going to have a live wrap-up webinar. We're going to answer your questions, talk about what we learned throughout this summit, and have a good time. So really celebrate this amazing experience that you guys are going to have. So that's it. That's our whole schedule here. And like I said, you guys can access this information right now. You can go to this URL as long as you've registered for the summit. You can go to this page and you can click any one of these. We can click Cyrus's, and then you're going to be taken to a page where you get a chance to watch the interview. So you just hit play right there and you get to watch the interview, and you can also listen to it right here as an audio file if that's better for you. And if you want to, own these files and be able to listen to them while you're driving around or while you're doing laundry or while you're on an airplane, you're not connected to the internet, you can always upgrade. So that's an opportunity you can do right there, and then you get the all access pass. And you get some bonuses with that. We're going to do some three coaching calls for everybody who purchases the All Access Pass. We're going to do a video call where we can see you, you can see us, and we're going to go over any individual questions you have about applying this information. You also can win a year of the Forks Meal Planner for buying the All Access Pass, and you also get a chance to win a registration for Forks Are Knives cooking course. So you get entered into all that when you upgrade to the All Access Pass. And that's it. So I'll go back here, and that's it. You just, if you're on any page, you click Schedule, save this URL, and you'll be able to access all this information. We're really excited about it.
Hey, Robbie, can you hear me right now?
I can.
Okay, fantastic. So if you guys did not get that actual link from Robbie, don't worry about it, because every day in your email, we will be sending one email per day, and that email will say, click here to watch the interviews. Just click on the link. It'll take you directly to that page, and you'll be able to watch all the interviews that you want based off of the ones that are live. Now, let's get to some Q&A here, because I know you guys have a lot of really good questions, and we can address a lot of your questions, okay? So Jenna says, I was doing so well with my weight loss, down about 50 pounds, and my doctor wanted me to start on a different insulin, Toujeo, because it was more concentrated and therefore I would need to take less of it. The opposite has happened. It's caused a rapid weight gain over the past 8 months. Should I switch back? Okay, Jenna, usually insulin itself does not cause weight gain. What causes weight gain is the use of excess insulin. Okay, so there's this common idea that I'm injecting insulin and therefore I'm going to gain weight. It's not a true statement. If you're over-injecting insulin more than your body's physiological requirement, that can significantly increase your risk for developing weight gain. So before you start to point a finger at insulin itself, what I would do is I would start to understand, what is the status of your diet right now? How low fat is your diet? How plant-based is your diet? How whole is your diet? Once you implement a low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet, you will notice that your insulin use probably will come down very quickly, at which point losing weight is going to become a lot easier for you. So if that's not in play, then we can't really start on the sort of insulin. I can't point a finger at insulin right now because it's probably too early in the process. Toujeo is a phenomenal insulin, so don't worry about Toujeo necessarily being wrong. It's a great alternative.
Okay, somebody is saying, I heard that this can be reversed through diet, but which diet? I assume in that case, this person is saying that they heard that you could reverse pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes through diet. And we're here to tell you that diet, that is true, and that diet is a low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet. And you're going to hear in the summit why that works, okay? But it's very clear. In short, it's low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet. We'll define all 3 words for you. Low-fat means a maximum of 15% of calories from fat or a total of 30 grams of total fat per day. That's what we mean by low-fat. You'll hear a lot of the experts talk about the erroneous science, about people saying, the science saying, hey, we compared a low-fat diet to a low-carb diet, and low-carb diet won. But they did not do a truly low-fat diet. So it's very important to know that and establish what that is. Now, plant-based means predominantly plants, getting our calories from plants. Whole food means unprocessed foods. So that's a big thing that we teach, and that gets the best results. So having intact whole grains like brown rice is going to be a little bit better than having things like a brown rice pasta or something like that. Or eating potatoes is different than having potato chips. So it's a very big deal to eat your food in an unprocessed format. And so that's the answer to the question. Low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet can reverse type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, and as long as you're producing enough insulin, which most people with those conditions are.
Okay, so here's another question. How do you feel about Dr. McDougall's starch-based diet? We are very big fans of Dr. McDougall's starch-based diet. You're going to learn from Dr. McDougall directly in this summit. He teaches you why a starch-based diet could be a phenomenal solution for reversing insulin resistance and reversing diabetes altogether. And the low-fat, plant-based, whole food umbrella contains diets that are either high in fruit or diets that are high in starch. Both of them are considered low-fat, plant-based, whole food diets. So pay attention to his lecture because it's really good. Okay. Andrea says,
a random question came in. I know we have a spreadsheet keeping track of all these, but one question just came in. I just saw it and I laughed. Somebody's like, do you really enjoy having a huge papaya and lettuce bowl for lunch almost every day? And the bottom line is yes. Every meal for me is like dessert, and I go out of my way to source the highest quality ingredients because I care. And some people don't really care what their food tastes like. They're like, you know what? Just tell me what to eat. It's bland. I don't really care. I don't really care about food. I personally, I love food. I love eating. I love my meals, and I go out of my way to make sure that they're amazing, and I absolutely enjoy them. And my taste buds have come alive when I chew arugula or I chew lettuce or spinach. The flavor is amazing, and I enjoy it. So I really do like my simple meals. Of course, we don't expect or teach people to eat exactly the way I eat or exactly the way Cyrus eats. We are all about catering to your preferences. And that's the beautiful thing about the low-fat, plant-based whole food diet is there is a wide range of plants that you get to eat, a wide range of ways to prepare them, all kinds of sauces, all kinds of different flavors, different types of beans, different types of bananas, different types of apples. The variety is endless.
Okay, great. So here's 2 questions about the physiology of diabetes. So the first question is it possible that somebody living with type 2 diabetes who is insulin dependent can get off of Humalog and or Lantus? The answer is not only yes, but absolutely yes. Now, I don't want to overstate that with 100% certainty this is going to happen to you, Kathy. However, what we've seen in our program and what over 85 years of research has shown is that when you address insulin resistance on the head and you reverse it and you become insulin sensitive, then your overall insulin need goes down. And whether that's insulin that you're injecting using a syringe, or insulin that you're injecting using a pen, or the insulin that your body is manufacturing, your insulin need, your biological insulin need goes down. And as a result of that, you just need less insulin. So we have people that in our program that get off of insulin altogether. They start with 150 units, they get down to 20. Some people start at 75, they get down to 0. Some people start at 32 and they get down to 0. And there's actually a lot of research that was conducted as far back as 1935 that's been replicated over and over and over and over again that shows this exact effect when you eat low-fat plant-based whole foods. Now, Stacy asked a question. She says, please explain type 1.5. Type 1.5 can be relatively confusing. A simple way to think about type 1.5 is this. Type 1.5 is adult onset, slow progressing type 1 diabetes. So write that down. Adult onset, slow progressing type 1 diabetes. It's autoimmune. That means that there is your immune system is mounting an attack to the beta cells in your pancreas that's reducing your body's ability to manufacture insulin. Unlike somebody living with type 1 diabetes like Robbie and myself, type 1 diabetes is a fast progression to full insulin dependence. What that means is that from the minute you go to the hospital and get diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, within 6 months, 9 months, sometimes as much as 18 months at the most, we're fully insulin dependent. That means that our bodies effectively make 0 insulin. People with type 1 diabetes have a much slower progression to full insulin dependence, and they may never even get there. So if you're living with type 1.5 diabetes, or if you've been diagnosed with that, what that means is that there's an autoimmune reaction, but it's just slow, and it's usually onset after the age of 30. So there's very effective strategies that we've been able to help people implement that teach you how to slow down the rate at which your body becomes more and more and more insulin dependent. And when you do it beautifully. Your blood glucose is controlled very well. So I hope that makes sense.
Okay, somebody asked a question. Are nuts okay to eat? How about salted nuts or nuts with herbs? Okay, so we put food into 3 different categories: green light, yellow light, and red light. So the green light category is whole plant foods that you can truly eat essentially unlimited quantities of because of their calorie density. And you will see Chef AJ talk about this. You will see Matt Letterman talk about this to really get a true understanding of why that works. So check that out. The bottom line is, in the yellow light category is where we have foods like nuts and seeds, avocados, coconut meat, whole olives. These are all whole plant-based foods, but they're high fat. They're high in fat. And when you eat too many of those, that will lead to insulin resistance, even if it's plant-based food. And I know a lot of people question that. They're curious about that. And the fun thing is, for people like Cyrus and myself and the numerous type 1 clients that we have worked with, we have a lot of data. Cyrus always likes to talk about how much fun he has with diabetes because it's such a data-driven condition. We know how much insulin we're injecting every day. We calculate our total carbohydrate intake, and we measure our blood glucose. With those 3 pieces of information on a daily basis, many, many times a day, we get to see how does high-fat plant-based foods affect somebody's insulin sensitivity. And we see over and over and over again, even if you eat too many nuts and seeds, too much avocado, too much coconut meat, you will see your insulin sensitivity decrease. Your insulin resistance becomes more prevalent, it's harder to manage your blood glucose, and it's just not fun. So nuts and seeds are to be eaten in small quantities, and salted we would not recommend. We definitely prefer people move towards a salt-free program.
Okay, so here's a couple of questions that I think are great. Kat asked a question. She says, what's the odds of reversing diabetic neuropathy or diabetic retinopathy? Okay, for those of you that may be new to Robbie and myself, or maybe to Mastering Diabetes, I highly recommend going to the iTunes store and looking for the Mastering Diabetes podcast. Robbie and I have sunk in hundreds of hours to creating a podcast in which we talk about various topics in the world of diabetes. And we have one episode about, it's a thing called hydrotherapy. And hydrotherapy can be used very effectively to reverse neuropathy. So if you haven't already, listened to the podcast, either go to iTunes or just literally in Google type in Mastering Diabetes podcast. If you're on an iPhone or on a smartphone, you can look in the podcast directory and type in Mastering Diabetes and it should pop up. Kat, I highly recommend listening to the hydrotherapy episode because it's helped a lot of people. And neuropathy is a very reversible condition, both by what you put into your mouth, but also by using water of hot and cold alternating temperatures. So I will leave it at that. Go check out that episode. And even if you're not interested in reversing neuropathy, but you're just interested in learning more about diabetes, please listen to the podcast. Hopefully you will really enjoy what's there.
Okay, so I see lots of questions coming in. This is great. So keep them coming. I know Tara and Kylie are responding in the chat box as quickly as they can, and we're going to get through these. We have one quick question. Somebody's asking, how long is the summit each day? So each day, there's 5 new interviews. Each interview is roughly between 30 and 45 minutes or so. So if you wanted to watch all the interviews in one day, you'd probably want to budget, roughly 5 hours or so. It's a lot of time. But if you have the time, make it work. But it's available. It's not released at certain times. Okay, so they're available in the morning, so you have all day to access them. That's the main point.
Okay. Pete, I think you're asking one of the best questions I've seen of all the questions here, okay? The question is this: I see so many people giving up on whole food plant-based because they don't appear to be eating a sufficient amount of calories. How can you be sure that you're eating enough so that your metabolism doesn't think that you're starving and then stop the whole show? Pete, I got 2 words for you: Matt Letterman. Please, please, please watch Matt Letterman's talk. He talks about calorie density. Also, watch Chef AJ's talk. The 2 of them hammer calorie density home, and they're both brilliant, and they both give you strategies for how you can know that when you're eating a low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet, that you're actually eating enough food. Because your body has very particular ways in which it can sense calories. It can also sense volume. It can also sense micronutrient density. And so your brain is constantly trying to figure out, am I full? Am I full? Am I full? Am I full? And it has various mechanisms that it uses to try and find that out. And if you're eating a low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet, chances are you're very high in the nutrient density side of things. But if you don't eat enough, then you can either lose weight too rapidly, or you can lose energy, or you can become too skinny too quickly. So calorie density is the name of the game. And again, Dr. Matt Letterman and Chef AJ is your ticket to understanding exactly what to do.
Absolutely. Kathy asks, do the same principles of eating apply to diabetes type 2 and heart disease? Okay. And I want you to check out on March 31st, Rob Osfeld, How to Reverse Coronary Artery Disease and Diabetes Simultaneously. You're going to want to check that out, hear what he has to say. The short answer is yes, but if you want the in-depth understanding and the science behind it all, how they're connected, how high blood pressure is connected, all that stuff, you do not want to miss that interview.
100%. I mean, it's funny. As you were going through all these interviews, Robbie, I was like, that's a good interview. Oh, that's a good interview. Like, oh, no, that was a good interview. So, there's nuggets in every single one of these interviews, and I realize you guys might not have 35 hours to watch all of the interviews, but pick the topics that you really care about and hammer those topics, because these interviews are great.
Absolutely.
Okay. Here's another question. Carrie says, my daughter is insulin resistant. What's the first thing I should concentrate on? Okay. So when it comes to insulin resistance, as you guys are going to learn tomorrow, we're going to go into a lot of detail. I have a talk about insulin resistance and what causes it. as does Dr. David Katz, as does Dr. Neil Barnard. Please watch these interviews. Okay. Insulin resistance. Please get out a piece of paper and a pen right now. I'll give you 2 seconds to get it, okay? Get out a piece of paper and a pen. The most important thing that you can learn in the entire Mastering Diabetes Online Summit, I'm going to tell you right here and right now. And this is this. Insulin resistance is caused by the storage of fat in tissues that are not designed to store fat. I will say that one more time. Insulin resistance is caused by the storage of fat in tissues that are not designed to store fat. Your muscle, okay? When I say muscle, I literally mean your shoulder, your tricep, your bicep, your chest muscle, your abdomen, your quadriceps, your hamstrings, the muscles that you use to lift weights, to move things, to pick up groceries. Those tissues are not designed to store large quantities of fat. When you eat a diet that is low in carbohydrate, high in fat, high in protein, though your muscle takes a hit and your muscle ends up absorbing a whole bunch of fatty acids, and it's not designed to do that. Your liver also does the exact same thing. Both your muscle and your liver act as sponges, and they soak up fatty acids. As soon as they accumulate, over-accumulate fatty acids, insulin resistance sets in. So if you really want to reverse insulin resistance, first and foremost, I hate to say it, but have to drop your fat intake and really get it down to between 10 and 15% of your total diet. Then, and only then, are you going to start to notice that you're becoming more insulin sensitive and your need for insulin and oral medications goes down. Okay, so again, insulin resistance is caused by the storage of fat in tissues that are not designed to store fat. Do whatever you need to do. Tattoo that to your forehead, write it on your chest. I don't care, but put it somewhere visible, because that's the take-home message. And you're going to see that reinforced over and over again in the summit.
Absolutely, and I'm going to add to that. So Rick asked, starches convert to sugars. How does it work for type 2 diabetes? So what Cyrus just said is the answer to that question, which is understanding what is insulin resistance, what causes it, and why sugar is not the problem. Why the glucose, the sugars, in fruits and vegetables and potatoes are not the problem. So you will learn that in this summit. I'm telling you, if you're on this webinar and you're just like scratching your head, like, how is this true? I just don't get it. Like, how can these guys tell people to eat potatoes and fruit for diabetes? Like, you're just brand new to this. I cannot emphasize enough. Watch these interviews. Set aside the time to watch these free interviews and understand what's going on. So if you just have 1 hour tomorrow, like, watch Cyrus's interview. Like, read, we have the science in there, that we have some PowerPoints in there so you can understand it. Like, you're brand new to this, watch Cyrus's interview, okay? And then, you can pick any one of the other ones after that. But you really got to understand sugar is not the problem with diabetes. Right.
It never has been, it never will be. There's a lot of other questions here about, if I'm type 1 and, what fruits should I avoid? Or, do starches convert to sugar? Or are potatoes bad for me, okay? The answer is this. Carbohydrates are not your enemy. Carbohydrate-rich foods were never your enemy. They will never be the enemy. And they are not causing diabetes. What's causing diabetes is the overaccumulation of fatty acids in tissues that are not designed to store fat. Secondarily, when you're consuming refined foods and refined products, that can also contribute to insulin resistance as well, because refined products speed up the rate at which glucose can enter your blood, and they speed up the rate at which fatty acids can enter your blood, and all of a sudden tissues all around your body have to absorb these nutrients even though they're not looking for it in a very short period of time. So point being is that carbohydrate-rich foods are not the enemy. You've got to understand that fat-rich foods are causing insulin resistance, and once you can reverse that and become insulin sensitive, then that opens the door and the opportunity to eat carbohydrate-rich foods. But it's a two-step process. And if you just start to eat a bunch of carbohydrate-rich foods and you're already living with insulin resistance and haven't changed your total fat intake, it's never going to work, period, end of story.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm trying to get through some more questions here. A quick one. Somebody says, how can a person know for sure if they have type 1.5 or type 2? It's very simple. You want to get 2 key tests. Number 1 is a diabetes antibody panel. So you ask your doctor for this panel. Most insurances cover it. as a preventative blood test. So my insurance let me. I got this test for free recently, just to show people and get it done for fun. So the test, the diabetes antibody panel. You want to test GAD antibodies, IA2 antibodies, and insulin antibodies. Those are the three things in there. If you just get one tested, you could be left with some incomplete information. So for example, I'm living with type 1 diabetes. I got that test done. My GAD antibodies were completely fine. My IA2 antibodies were high, and my insulin antibodies were completely fine. So if I only had gotten one, you might have confusing information. But and then the other test to get is a C-peptide test. So this is an important test really for everybody living with diabetes, but in this particular case. So you want to get a C-peptide test, and that's going to show you how well your pancreas is working and producing insulin. So for example, when I got my C-peptide test, it's less than 0.1. So the reference range is roughly 0.8. I think it's like 3.4. Less than 0.1, I'm in a non-detectable range, which means that my pancreas is producing pretty much zero insulin right now. So if you're confused, do I have type 1.5? Do I have type 2? Diabetes antibody panel, and a C-peptide test. You get all that information, it's going to be pretty easy to make a distinction of where you're at. And we've had a lot of people in our coaching program come to us, and their doctors didn't know this information, didn't really help them out. We helped them communicate with their doctor and coach them through this process, and they thought they were type 2. They were doing everything they could to follow the program, and they were still seeing elevated readings. They were frustrated. They weren't feeling well. They got the test, they got the information, figured out, hey, their pancreas wasn't producing sufficient insulin. Nobody's fault. It just is what it is. It's time to talk to your doctor, get the appropriate insulins. They start using that, and now they feel amazing, and their life is back. They can manage their blood glucose. They get to eat the foods that make them feel good and prevent heart disease and Alzheimer's and cancer, and they're on their path to a successful, happy life because they finally got the information they needed. So there you go.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. Rosalind says, what do you guys know about TMAO, and who's going to be talking about it? 2 words for you. Robert Osfeld, Dr. Robert Osfeld. Please watch his lecture. He talks about the connection between coronary artery disease and diabetes, and he talks about TMAO. He's a TMAO expert, and you can learn a lot about what causes the production of TMAO, how is it different than TMA, how do choline-rich foods accelerate this process. It's all inside. Okay, here's another question from Juliana. She says, do you believe that eating junk vegan products affects your body negatively? There's too many vegan junk products at the grocery stores and restaurants. We'd like to hear your opinion in relation to diabetes. So, Juliana, I could not agree with you more. Just because something is vegan does not make it healthy. Now, the reason that we don't refer to ourselves as a vegan business or a vegan coaching program or a vegan summit is because vegan is not the right word. Okay? The reason that we refer to our entire practice as low-fat, plant-based whole foods is for this reason. The foods have to be low in fat. Just because something is vegan does not mean it's low in fat at all. It can be made out of a ton of nuts and seeds and oil and avocados and coconuts. Okay, so that right there is a problem because again, higher fat foods are going to cause insulin resistance. So we talk about low fat foods. Number 2, we talk about plant-based foods. Okay, foods have got to be coming from the plant world, no question. And then number 3, we talk about whole foods. Whole foods. Just because something is vegan does not mean that it's whole. You can go to the grocery store, you can buy a tofu burger. That's not whole. You can buy crackers that are, gluten-free but made out of beans, okay? That's not a whole food, okay? Not until your diet is primarily composed of low-fat, plant-based whole foods will you actually reverse insulin resistance. When you eat these junk foods that are highly processed, a lot of them act very similarly to how refined white table sugar might act, right? These, because it's refined, it's lacking sometimes fiber, It's lacking micronutrients like vitamins, minerals, fiber, water, antioxidants. And as a result of that, when you put it in your mouth, it can get absorbed into your blood very quickly. So you get nutrients that enter your blood very quickly, and then your liver takes a hit, your muscles take a hit, your brain takes a hit, and all of a sudden these tissues can become inflamed because they're absorbing nutrients at way too fast of a rate. So the presence of fiber and micronutrients slows down the process, and by keeping the process nice and slow, that's what allows you to regain what's called a normal metabolism and a normal physiological nutrient transport process.
Okay, so somebody's asking a question. So my daughter is type 1, age 17. She sometimes gets high blood sugar before bed and wants a snack. She only supposed to have 20 carbs if her blood sugar is in the correct range. Then we want to give her a low-carb snack, but these are usually high-fat. Is it better to give her fruit instead? So, Shelly, so here's the deal. Number one, the best thing to do is to prevent having the high blood glucose before it's time to go to bed in the first place. And the best way to do that is follow a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. But then for people living with type 1 is to fill out a decision tree. So you can go to our website, masteringdiabetes.org. You can type in decision tree to search for that, and you can download it for free. And you can start filling that out and really stay on top of what exactly is happening and what's the cause and effect relationship for why the blood glucose is going high. So that's the number one tip. And then, yeah, if somebody is high, you're living with type 1, you got high, and you want to have a snack. Yes, the answer is trying to have a snack that is not super high in carbohydrates. So that might be a cauliflower snack with some type of sauce that's very low in carbohydrate. That might be snacking on celery. But again, you don't want to go, in that case, you wouldn't want to go snack on some high-fat food because, oh, my blood glucose is high, so I'm hungry. You're going to go snack on a high-fat food. You're making the entire problem worse. The entire problem of trying to actually have control of a person living with type 1, have control of their blood glucose so they aren't high before going to bed, is getting rid of the high-fat foods. So that's my recommendation there. I hope that's helpful. Let's see. What else do we have here? Let's see.
Hey, guys, I'm going to say something here real quick, Robbie. Yeah. I would recommend doing two things if you haven't done either one of these already. Number one, please visit us on Facebook, okay? If you go into the Facebook search bar, you can just type in Mastering Diabetes. And I would like you guys to go to the Mastering Diabetes page. The Mastering Diabetes page, we're constantly updating it with a ton of new information. Tara in our company, she's posting a ton of content there that's very relevant to low-fat, plant-based, whole food nutrition. And a lot of that content features our speakers. Every single day during the summit, we're going to be doing a Facebook Live, which is, either Robbie or myself are going to be basically, doing 15, 20, 30 minutes or so where we're going to be talking about what just happened. We're going to be giving you some preface for what's coming up. And these Facebook Live sessions are great. They're also places where you can win things. We've been giving away Forks Over Knives DVDs. We gave away an Instant Pot today. So pay attention and, like the page and follow the Facebook Lives. That's my number one recommendation.
And come and ask us questions on those Facebook Lives. Look, we're not going to be able to get to every question tonight. So ask us questions there as you go through the summit. We're going to be there.
Absolutely. So one thing that, we want to make abundantly clear in this process is that Robbie and I are not the type of people that want to just put ourselves behind a wall and then not interact with you. So we want to know you by first name. We want to understand your situation. We truly do love helping you. We love helping people. We've helped out a lot of people. We want to continue to do that. So don't be a stranger, right? If you have a question, you want that question answered, go to the Facebook page, write a comment on one of the posts, and we will get to you. Go to the Facebook Live, write a comment, and we will get back to you, okay? That's number one. Number two, we also have a free Facebook group specifically for people that are going through the summit where you can go into the Facebook group, you can start asking questions and learn from other people that have been going through this process. There are 6,000 people in that group right now, and it's going to continue to grow over time. And you will find that there's a wealth of information in there. I mean, there's people that have been in this group for more than a year who are just killing it. And they know a lot of stuff about this. And then there's people who joined yesterday, right? And there's people at all steps of the process. But you got a question, you want to learn from other people, maybe you want to provide support to others, that's the place to do it, okay? So Facebook page, number 1, Facebook group, number 2, okay? So that's all I have to say about Facebook.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're going to have to wrap this up pretty soon here. And I know we haven't gotten to every question. It's hard to get to every single one. But again, connect with us on these Facebook Lives. Connect in that free Facebook group. You ask a question, you're going to get a lot of great information, okay? Whether it's from somebody in our team or whether it's from other people, like Cyrus said, they've been there for a year, they've been through it, they want to help, they want to pass on the information, you can get your answers there. So I'm just going to rapid fire a couple questions I just saw pop in. What are red light foods? Red light foods are all animal products. Those are out. It's very simple. And then oils and processed pastries and stuff. So olive oil, coconut oil, a pastry, that's all out. It's very simple. I'll tell you, our program, what to eat is actually very simple. So I hope that's helpful there. Somebody said, there was another question I knew I could answer real quick. Oh yeah, somebody says, if I have diabetes for a long time, can you still reverse it? Cyrus asked that earlier. In a majority of cases, yes, you absolutely can. So those are the 2 I wanted to answer. Somebody said, is the Facebook Live free or for members? The Facebook Live that we're doing every day, it's free. It's on our Mastering Diabetes main page. Just go there, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. We are there live. Ask us questions, and you can also watch the recording. If you missed that, it still stays on Facebook, but if you want us to answer your question in person, come and join us live and ask your question there. So I think I got through those questions that came in. Do you want to answer any more, Cyrus?
I think we answered actually most of the questions that came through. There might be a couple other stragglers, but most importantly, I want you guys to understand that Robbie and I, we are very excited. We are very excited that you guys are here. We're very excited you're participating. I mean, I can't even tell you how many hours we've sunk into creating this thing. I mean, I did a rough calculation the other day, and I think each one of us has sunk in almost 1,500 hours apiece. And, you know, that's not to mention all of the supports, you know, the work that our support staff has been putting into this and our coaching staff. So, you know, this is a labor of love for us. We love to put out this information. We want your guys' participation. So if you're ready to learn, you're ready to sit in the driver's seat of your diabetes health for the first time, maybe for the last time ever, this is your opportunity, okay? And I'm not overstating things when I say that, okay? This information is truly life-changing. And we hope that you can learn from this, ask questions, connect with other people, and really take this information to heart, use it to transform your life, and we'll see you on the inside.
Let's do this. See you guys during the summit.